Well, Gary Johnson is a Republican and serves as the honorary chairman of the Our America Initiative. He's been an outspoken advocate for effective government, lower taxes, winning the war on drug abuse by decriminalization, protecting our civil liberties, revitalization of the economy, and prompting entrepreneurship and privatization. In 94, he was elected popularly as the governor of New Mexico, reelected in 98. He couldn't run for a third time because of term limits. OurAmericanInitiative.com is his website, and he was traveling around the country 3 or 4 months ago. We had him in studio here, and he's got a book out, of course, or this new initiative out. And I pointed out that looked like he was, thinking about running for president. And he said, well, we're testing the waters. And so I'm going from memory. He may not have a book out. I'm going from 3 or 4 months ago when he was in studio with us. The point is, he announced yesterday that he is running for president. He thinks he can focus on New Hampshire with his libertarian/conservative ideas, in many respects similar to Ron Paul, except for the abortion issue. And so he joins us now to talk about a host of issues. Governor, great to have you back with us.
Alex, it's great to be on, and the new website would be Gary Johnson 2012, in that I am engaged right now in the contest of running for President of the United States. I'm out here trying to get Republicans to check me off as their spokesperson.
Well, there's only one other guy out there who I think's got a better record than you overall, and that's Ron Paul, obviously. But at the same time, he is 75 years old. By him getting ready to announce soon, regardless, he's going to educate a lot of people and kind of get Rand position for the future, who's also really proving himself to be a constitutionalist and libertarian in the U.S. Senate. But, Gary, I really support almost all of your positions and think you are one of the best candidates, light years ahead of Trump, Mitt Romney, all these other insiders. But let me get my one contentious bone out of the way with you. You are overall a states' rights guy, but you are for a woman's, quote, right to choose, at least in the first trimester. That's, better than, being for partial birth abortion and things like that. But, instead of the media framing it for you, where do you stand on abortion?
I support a woman's right to choose up until viability of the fetus. As governor of New Mexico, I would have signed a bill banning late-term abortion. I've always favored parental notification. I've always favored counseling. And I've always favored the notion of no public funds used for abortion.
And I guess that is a libertarian view, but what about Ron Paul's argument that it should be a state rights issue? But then he goes on to say, as a libertarian, what about the baby's rights? I mean, sure, the mother has rights, but what about the baby?
Well, I would agree that it should be a state rights issue. And I also recognize that this is an issue that we may just have to agree to disagree on. Meaning, I do support a woman's right to choose.
Now, GaryJohnson2012.com, and we appreciate you joining us so early into your announcement. What you announced yesterday morning?
Yes. Announced here in New Hampshire. I think that. Well, first of all, New Hampshire is really key for me, that you can go from obscurity to national prominence based on doing well in New Hampshire, and New Hampshire is a great place. I mean, New Hampshire, the people in New Hampshire, I think, recognize that they get to vet all the candidates, and that they're going to do that they're going to go out of their way to meet all the candidates, and so it's retail politics at its best. It's cussing, discussing at every juncture, and that's a good thing. And as a result of doing well in New Hampshire, getting vetted by the voters in New Hampshire really sets the stage for the rest of the country.
Governor, let's shift gears into the areas where I really agree with you. You were on 3 or 4 months ago here, and you talked about we're going to go bankrupt. It's a mathematical certainty. The budget is way too big. We've got the banker bailouts, the derivatives. Under this fractional reserve banking system, at the end of the Ponzi scheme, it's mathematically impossible for a new dollar to be created. A dollar of debt is created. And we have the Federal Reserve head in Kansas, in Dallas, saying we've got to cut the budget, we've got to cut spending, military, welfare, across the board. Banker bailouts have got to end. or we're going to go bankrupt. And Geithner comes out Friday and then Sunday and then Tuesday of this week saying, if we don't raise the debt limit, if we don't increase spending, if we don't raise taxes, then we're going to default. But aren't we already technically defaulting with 70+% monetization by the Federal Reserve? You know, as an economic guy, break down for us your concern about this, or your view on this S&P saying they have a negative outlook towards the dollar, and U.S. Treasuries keeping their AAA rating.
Well, you said it. I mean, it couldn't be said any better. We're buying up our own treasuries. So what we've done is we've delayed the economic collapse that is in the offing. If we weren't buying up our own treasury debt, I think that we would see that happen tomorrow. I'm an optimist, and I think this country is a country of optimists. The only way that we address this, and that isn't to say that we still won't have an economic collapse, because in essence, we can't pay back $14 trillion in debt when our ongoing yearly deficit is $1.6 trillion. In the face of that, we're not going to be able to pay back $14 trillion. The only way that we potentially take on what is going to happen is to balance the federal budget tomorrow. And I'm optimistic that we can do that. We can do this. We can fix this. We went to the moon. We can fix the federal, but we can balance revenues with expenditures. But it has to be now. It can't be a 10-year plan that gets us a quarter of the way there. It needs to be now, and it needs to include a dialogue of Medicaid, Medicare, reforming Social Security, and defense.
But as Rand Paul has said, I think you just echoed, if you don't cut it across the board, and if you don't get rid of these new banker bailouts and QE3 that they're now starting to push, no amount of welfare state being cut back is going to fix this.
Well, I think that the federal government could cut Medicaid and Medicare by 43%, that they could block grants of states a fixed amount of money, 43% less than what we're currently spending, and leave health care delivery to the poor and those over 65 to the states. 50 laboratories of innovation, 50 laboratories of best practices in which best practices would genuinely emerge, best practices would get emulated, there'd be failure, failure would get avoided. This is what we need to do when it comes to Medicaid and Medicare. And there are also other suggestions, health savings accounts, if you're talking about somebody just starting out in the workplace. There are all sorts of reforms.
Well, exactly. As they throw more money at it, that's supply and demand, the price only goes up, because the government is artificially doing that. Before we had any government involvement, we had the best health care in the world 50, 60 years ago, and now it's all being phased out. And you're right, just like with the schools systems in the country, I've seen numbers in some schools where half of the money is bureaucracy. It's the same thing with the federal bureaucracy that they've just tried to add more to with the Obamacare. That's what I'm for cutting, is if you get rid of the Department of Health and Human Services, get rid of the Department of Education. I mean, that's the kind of cutting I want. So what would you do as president? Would you move against all those federal bureaucracies and just completely abolish them?
Well, back to cutting Medicaid and Medicare by 43%. And giving it back to the states, hey, that does it. That in essence may in fact dry up all of the function of those agencies. When it comes to education, we should be abolishing the Federal Department of Education from the standpoint that federal government gives the states 11 cents out of every dollar that the state spends, but comes with 16 cents worth of strings attached. So we need to understand that it's really a negative to take federal money when it comes to education. Give it back to the states. Give it all back to the states.
Yeah, it's our money that was taken to begin with. It's our money that was taken to begin with. Then they send bureaucratic strings back, federally trying to not let parents pack their lunches. That's federal bureaucracy. Banning dodgeball, softball. I mean, Governor, why do you think all over the country, the nanny state, I mean, my view is that it's being done to set the precedent that to wipe our noses, we've got to get federal permission. What's your view of the feds moving all over the country to lobby states to ban summer camps because they're too dangerous?
Well, I'm trying to keep up with you, Alex. You're just one step ahead of me. Don't quite let me finish the last point. But I'm
sorry. Go back to your last point then. Go back to your last point.
No. Well, just with the health care. You know, what you're talking about is arguably 60%, and I'm agreeing with you here, but you're talking about health care costs that are arguably 60% bureaucratic. The government could be engaged in a systematic process of getting rid of regulation and impediments for healthcare entrepreneurs that would want to enter into the healthcare space to deliver better products, better services at lower prices. Free market approach to healthcare. And by the way, healthcare is about as far removed from free market as it possibly can be. And then you move on and talk about schools and the fact that the federal government is dictating X, Y, and Z to Manchester, New Hampshire. Shouldn't Manchester, New Hampshire decide how it is they want to conduct schools for their kids? And for that matter, all across the country? One size fits all doesn't fit, and one size fits all has us bankrupt as a country. The federal government needs to get out of our lives. The unintended consequence of government and regulation and legislation that ends up just burdening us and adding costs to our daily lives, as opposed to this notion of liberty and freedom and the personal responsibility that goes along with that.
Sure, absolutely. Former New Mexico Governor Gary E. Johnson, Gary Johnson, 2012.com, running for president, up there focused in New Hampshire. Shifting gears to geopolitical matters, not just with defense spending, but that first, how much would you cut it by, or give us a ballpark? And what would you do about all these new conflicts? I mean, if you were president right now and the UN said, like they did a month ago, to Obama, attack Libya, what would President Johnson do?
Well, right now, as you have to do every day, you've got an opinion on everything. I have to have an opinion on everything right now, and I appreciate the arena that I'm in. So when it comes to Libya, you know what? I'm opposed to Libya, and this would have been a day after Libya happened. I'm opposed to what we're doing A through Z. Where is the congressional authorization to go into Libya? Where is it in the Constitution that says that because you don't like a foreign leader, you should go in and topple that foreign leader? Who are the rebels? Are we not in a civil war here? And don't 5 other countries right now in the Middle East qualify for the same military intervention that we have unleashed in Libya? And under the umbrella of a no-fly zone. Didn't Saddam Hussein exist for 12 years under the umbrella of a no-fly zone? And under the umbrella of a no-fly zone, did not the atrocities in Bosnia occur? The unintended consequences of government. We take out Saddam Hussein, he's the check against Iran. Iran now raises its head. It's not a military threat to the United States, but we should remain vigilant to that military threat. So we need to stop nation building across the world. We need to reconcentrate our military on being able to react to us being attacked, or the notion of imminent danger, which Afghanistan, I would argue, at the beginning was totally warranted. We were attacked. We attacked back. That's what our military was for. We are at war with Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. We should remain vigilant to the terrorist threat. But after 6 months of being in Afghanistan, we'd wiped out Al-Qaeda. They weren't there anymore. Here we are. We're there 10 years later, building roads, schools, bridges, highways, and hospitals. Men and women are dying, and we're borrowing 43 cents out of every dollar to do this. Stop. Get out of Iraq and Afghanistan tomorrow. And I would have been opposed to Iraq from the very start, believing that there was never a national threat to our security, and that if there was, we had the military surveillance capability to see that happen, and that we could have gone in and addressed that situation if it would have occurred. And there was no threat at all from Libya Libya to our national security. There weren't any weapons being raised, and if there were, how come we didn't hear about that 2 months ago? We weren't hearing a thing about it.
Well, they also lied to us and said they wouldn't put ground troops in, and they've had advisors there and now are publicly talking about invading. And Gates last night, the Secretary of Defense, said this is not mission creep. So that's like saying a green tree is on a green tree. It's just incredible.